do it. And by the way, you've got a German Shepherd as well, haven't you?
I have a Belgian Malinois. Yeah. Come here, Ella. She's have you ever seen Malinois? Oh, buddy.
Aww.
Have you ever seen Malinois videos of what they're capable of and their
Yes.
their
They're very talented. Very, very talented. I've got a German Shepherd. So.
Oh, it looks like what's the dog? Is it a girl?
It's a girl, female. Her name's Alita Joy. So she's a cross between actual German Shepherd and Australian German Shepherd. So
what's her name?
Sorry?
What's her name?
Alita Joy.
Alita Joy. Oh, okay, yeah. Cool.
So you know Alita Battle Angel? The movie?
No.
Got to watch the movie. It's pretty cool. It's by Robert Rodriguez. We got her name basically from that film, and it means little winged one. And we saw her jumping on the couch and when we first got her, so we're like, yep, that's it. It fits perfectly. But okay, I normally do a quick formal introduction before I get off track talking about dogs forever, and then we dive right into all the good stuff.
Sure. You can use whatever we've already said. I don't mind.
Let's do it. Okay. Well, everyone, welcome back to a very exciting episode of the Storybox podcast. My friends, I'm delighted to welcome Danica Patrick. Now, for those of you that household name does not ring a bell, why? Go and look her up. She's absolutely incredible. She broke records on the track. She was one of the fastest women ever to race, I have to say. She has got a massive passion for helping people. She's inspiring people all over the world. She has a pretty good podcast called Pretty Intense. Go and listen to it. She's got amazing guests, more amazing than I have, actually. But I could go on and on and on about your very long bio. But Danica Patrick, welcome so much to the Storybox podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I don't always like sitting through the and she did this and she did that. Although at the end of it, I do feel a bit full of myself. So I guess it has its pros and cons.
I'm sure it does. I mean, I was thinking about it.
Just kidding.
I was thinking about actually going through each and every achievement, but I'm like, that's going to take far too long. I just want to get into the nitty gritty of your amazing story today. Thank you once again for being here. Before we dive into all the good stuff, one of the first questions I love asking all my guests is, what does success look like for you?
Man, as I'm thinking right now, and I let my thoughts go from like being happy to achieving something to setting a goal and achieving it, maybe like the ultimate way to sort of draw that out and give it something a little bit more interesting is anytime you move the goalposts. Like, I mean, that's success, right? Anytime you move the goalposts, because I think to myself, it's very hard for me to feel like truly successful in accomplishing a goal because it's kind of probably that whole like be present, thing that's really hard for so many of us to do, especially me. But it's there's like a destination syndrome, or for some people, they look back and sort of have like, association with the memories, and that includes a lot of baggage as well. But it's very fleeting in that moment of actually accomplishing what you think will be like some benchmark of making you successful. So maybe it's not in the accomplishment, it's in, the fact that you move the goalposts at all to make it, does that even apply over there without American football? Maybe, I don't even know, but do you know what I mean? Moving the goalposts. Okay. I think that might be a good barometer of success, because seemingly if you accomplish something, there's just another thing to accomplish usually.
It just never stops, right? There's always another thing that you have a goal in or want to achieve. One thing that you mentioned there that sort of fascinates me is you said that you struggle to be present. And I'm curious, why do you struggle to be present?
I'm joking a little. I'm like, when people come to my house, they're like, wow, it's like so zen here. And wow, you seem really peaceful and happy. And, I mean, these are all things that I've been working on for a really long time. But I definitely suffer from a little bit of destination syndrome of thinking when I get here, or not necessarily even when I get there, but just setting goals. Like I think to myself, okay, in 5 years, in 10 years, in my life, these are the things. And so I tend to get really, it tends to pull me along. But the lesson in life has been for me to learn when to let go of the rope. Because it's burning my hands. And so, I think that we all can have a little bit of a hard time knowing when to let go of things, whether it's a job or a person or where you live, or the fact that you've never been on an airplane or whatever it may be, sort of can be the thing that, it's difficult. So yeah, I think that's, that's why it's harder for me to be present, because it's the next thing for me. And I think that people fall into two brackets. I don't know, maybe you could answer where you fall in this, but I think people tend to be either future casters like me, where they're thinking about where they want to go and what they want to accomplish, or there's someone who thinks about the past a lot and tends to, live. I think one creates a little more anxiety. The other one may create a little bit more sort of, sadness, even on some level, or shame. I think there's a lot more shame associated with the past, but I think people fall into two brackets. Which one do you fall in one of those buckets, or am I just making stuff up?
I think I tippy-toe from one to the other. It just depends on what moment of my life I'm actually in. And if you're looking at the past and all the things you've experienced in the past, depending on the day and my mood for that day, sometimes like randomly I'll have this thought come up that has happened years ago, and I thought I had forgotten about it, but obviously I haven't forgotten about it, which will then make me lose my sense of present self and go back in time and revisit it. And then somehow when I get rid of that and get back to the present moment, which takes a lot of time, then I start thinking about my goals moving forward. So then I don't get stuck again, but then it just happens again and again and again. Like it's just constant reoccurrence. I don't know if that happens to you at all.
I mean, I think a lot less about the past. Like I'm someone that you could ask, do you have, what are your regrets in life? And I'd say, I don't really have any. I mean, there's things that I'm like, ooh, bummed that I had to go through that, but there's nothing that are bummed I made that decision. But I think they all led me to where I'm at. So that's why I don't regret. And regret for me implies that there's something I would like to change, but I can't. And so then there's a sticking point with regret. So they're just lessons to me. I also find that there's a little bit of a difference between the way that people operate personally and professionally. So for me, I've always been someone that's been, has a much healthier relationship with professional, emotions, professional goals, professional transitions, but personally is much more difficult for me. So, you find that you have those people that are like, happy as a clam, in a relationship, they're doing great, but then their work suffers. And so I think, similarly on the other side, there's people that are very successful in business, but their personal life's a mess and they can't, have difficulty with, staying in a partnership or whatever it may be. So I think they kind of fall into the sort of past, future, and then, a little bit of professional, personal, but look, being a human is hard. Okay. When I was a little like spark in the sky of consciousness that said, no, I'm going to go do this human thing, I didn't think it'd be this hard.
You weren't given the plan. You're just
Oh, I
thrust
knew
into
the
it.
plan. I just had such ferocious confidence that I was going to accomplish it, but I didn't quite know. I forgot. And I don't know the outcome. So of course I just, as humans, we just go through the process, and it's difficult. This being human stuff. It's, the whole system is quite simple, I think, but the actual experience of it is complicated because it's in our relationships that we see ourselves, because we can't actually see ourselves. So it's through triggering and projecting and, missteps and patterns that we actually start to figure things out. And I'm talking about we as in like not many. I mean, it's a complicated process to start to understand those aspects of existence, but it's kind of what calls me. So.
Where has your confidence come from? Has it come from experience, actually saying, I'm going to do this, do a goal that I've set for myself? Where has it come from for you?
Well, I think first off, it starts with doing something you like. And so, if you don't, doing something that you enjoy tends to give you a lot of drive, a lot of passion for something, commitment, consistency. But then I think that beyond that, it's like looking further into the future and seeing where I want it to go helps sort of blur the present moment for what it's worth to accomplish that great thing that I want to accomplish. And the belief that it's going to happen. So it's like vision, dream, that is a very important step. And then the most important aspect actually is believing that it's possible. So, and that is hard. Like I mean, I'm still a little bit conflicted in where that believing comes from. Is it something that we can train ourselves to do? Probably. Is this something that comes from our inner knowing, that comes from an aspect or a dimension of our existence that is, maybe that pre-planned blueprint or something like that, that is like, okay, you're going to become a race car driver and you're going to believe it's possible because you just look, you know, this is where you're going, even though you can't remember. There's a distant resonance with that thing. So I don't know. Maybe it's both, but of course that's an aspect of existence that we're not going to figure out until we die, and I'm not ready. So until then, I will train myself to believe in certain things, and I will follow those things that are easy to believe or easier to believe. But it's that, like, you know what I'm talking about, where you want to do something and, you're like, I want to build this company, and you can say like, or I deserve, like, I've been working really hard and I deserve to start this. Like, I know it. And then actually, like, the actual truth of the root of it is like, but I don't know if I can, or it's like, I'm not sure I'm smart enough, or I'm not sure I have the money, or I'm not sure. And then, but it's like that power of belief is so powerful to be able to go into it and be like, I know it's going to happen. I just know it. I don't know how, but I just know it. That believing is the magic sauce that makes things happen. So, yeah. And anyway, that's kind of a long-winded, complicated answer, but I believe there's been an inner knowing in me. I mean, I drove race cars. Like, what did I do? I mean, I did something so weird for anybody, especially for a girl. And so, how I had such blind faith in that's what I called it when I was a kid, blind faith. I don't know, because I didn't work. Like, I grew up in the Midwest in Illinois, in America. And then I went to England when I was 16 for 3 years, came back when I was 19. I had no job for like 2 years. And by job, I mean, I wasn't getting paid before that, but I had nothing, no driving going on for almost 2 years. And it would have been easy to not believe that it was going to happen. Yet I just always believed it was going to happen. I always knew I had something special and too much to offer for it to not work out. And I have no idea why I thought that.
It's easy to doubt. It's so much easier. It's like almost conditioned from birth for us as human beings to doubt. And belief in of itself, and I say this all the time, humans have a problem with ultimately believing what they can't see. So if I can't see something that's going to be in front of me or my goal. I have a vision for it, but I can't see the small steps that are going to get me to that end goal. It's kind of like you have rejection that sets in, or if you have a bad day, then the doubt sort of starts to creep in even more. And then that belief ultimately you start questioning the belief. And
Mm,
I like how you have always known that the belief is there. Like you've just got to harness it, unlock it, which is
mhm,
not an easy thing to do at all.
mm,
And that's what I've experienced with doing the things that I actually want to do. And I'm still quite young. So it's easy for me to get impatient and say, hey, I want things now. So when you're faced with rejection, with no, do I still believe that the vision that I had when I first started this is going to happen? Well, of course, every single day. But
mm. The timeline is tricky. I find that that's also one of the aspects of being human that's really hard.
mm,
Is we have a manufactured timeline of how we think something should go, when it should happen, how it should happen, and if it doesn't happen in that on that timeline, we start to associate that with failure.
mm,
Maybe it's not for us, doubt, and all that stuff. And so, I think having a belief is good, and then releasing the timeline. So, there's also that aspect of like wanting something to happen and manifesting things, that when we want something to happen so badly and you're grasping so much and you just like, you want it and you're working so hard. Well, with that grasping, there's an implied belief that you're not going to get it because you're
mm,
efforting so much. You're like, oh my God, I want this so bad. There's an implied other side of that that says, I am so afraid I'm not going to get it. And so the universe gets a little confused and it ends up being mute. And
mm,
so when you can come up with something that you want to do and just believe in it and then release it and carry on with your life, then it has a higher probability of coming to you quicker because you've released resistance.
mm,
Um, and I mean, I think that's a fascinating way to look at things, right? Because it almost feels like you're not trying then, except for I just trust that once I've put it out there into the universe, this thought, this want, that it's being created, that the opportunity, like I've anchored it already. And so it's a matter of it just hitting me, getting to me. And it also, I think we also have an idea of how we want our life to go. So not only that timeline, but like, this is what I want. And it's like, you know what? Ch- Change your mind,
mm,
make it look different, make it look bigger, make it look this way. It doesn't have to, like, if you're creative and you're thinking, I want to write a book, what happens if it ends up being a podcast?
mm,
It's still communicating, right? Or, so it's like, it doesn't always have to come in the way that you think it's going to come. You just have to have the intention for what it is that you're trying to make happen from a fundamental standpoint, as opposed to a nuts and bolts standpoint.
mm. You actually segued into a question I wanted to ask you about fear, which I'll get to in just a moment. But sort of tying this all together in a nice bow, I've decided to make the choice in my life right now that no matter whichever state that I am in my life, whatever moment I'm in, that is exactly where I need to be. If it's
Mhm.
hard, if it's good, doesn't matter what it is exactly where I need to be. Coming to that realization was not easy
Mm,
at all. It's
for
still
sure.
not easy. It's a journey in of itself, but I know for a fact, and I believe this, that I'm where I need to be. It might not exactly be where I want to be sometimes, but it's where I need to be. So I thought I'd tie that in quite nicely with everything you were saying as well. It's
So
very,
true.
very beautiful. And then you sort of mentioned fear there for a moment. And I wanted to ask you about how has your relationship with fear changed over the course of your life?
Well, there's different kinds of fear. There's like physical fear. There's emotional fear. So, my fear level of being, hurt or injured has definitely gone down since I stopped driving 240 miles an hour with walls around me. And 30 plus of my best friends out there. So, I suppose that physical fear. And also what's funny is that I wonder how much I was just talking about this the other day. I wonder how much of my bandwidth for physical fear, like putting myself in dangerous situations, I was using towards my job, because since the very end of my career and like now, I find myself doing way more than I ever used to, like learning how to, and keep in mind, these aren't all super dangerous, but they're physical and they're things that you have to figure out how to do because you don't know how to do them because you've never done them before. But like wake surfing or skiing or heights of any kind, rappelling down mountains, jumping out of helicopters, bungee jumping. I find that I seek out more of those opportunities and they scare me less than they used to. And I think that I probably used up my physical fear bandwidth on my job.
That is a fascinating line of thought. Because my relationship with fear has changed over time. And I still have a fear of spiders, hate them. I still have a fear of heights, don't know why. But I don't have a fear of driving fast. And I've always been curious about this. Where did your need for speed start or come from? And when you first, compared to when you first jumped in the car and drove 240 miles an hour, when you actually got to that speed, what was going through your mind then compared to when you did it, say maybe 4 or 5 times later?
Well, let's just maybe go from the beginning to the end of my career even. So at the beginning, going 200 miles an hour, felt like, it was not, I wasn't thinking about the fear aspect of it because I hadn't had enough experiences yet. I hadn't created enough memories of when things went wrong to even know what to be scared of. And so then I think by the end of my career, and even let's fast forward to the year after I retired. So I retired at the Indy 500 in 2018. I went and did the broadcast in 2019. And when I was sitting on pit lane doing the broadcast, as the green flag is about to drop and I'm grabbing my bag of snacks, I've been working for 3 hours on the broadcast already. And I pull out some apple chips and start eating them. I'm like, this is very different than last year. And I remember thinking, and I'm watching the cars going, they're crazy. And so it's just, I didn't have the opportunity to be scared. So when you have enough experiences that give you the memories, then you kind of know what to be scared about or what could happen. And then, also purely opening up to the scope of what it is that you are actually doing, if that makes sense. I think in some jobs, once you've gone away from it, you end up going, whether it's, even if it's just not fear, let's say it's just workload or whatever, the people, the environment that you were in with the people that you worked with. When you come away from it, you're like, wow, I dealt with a lot, or wow, it's sometimes you don't give yourself the opportunity to see just how much had to go into it to make it happen. Like, man, that was a lot of work to get up every morning and, skip this, and I missed these things. And oh my God, physically, I was exhausted all the time. And, you just can't think about that because it's totally unproductive when you're trying to accomplish something.
So can you share with me a particular story or moment? So when you got in the car, you're racing, and you felt like you didn't have control of the car, or were you always in control?
Well, here's the problem with racing. Once you feel out of control, you have to slow down. So that's what makes you slower. Because you're like, if I push any harder, I'm going to crash. Yeah. So, that's kind of the name of the game, is constantly pushing that threshold of comfort, and building that muscle to like be in that spot more of the time and give it a bigger zone,
Mm.
like if you're only, the comfort of going around the corner and getting a little loose, to like hanging it out, to, doing it now at 150, now do it at 200. And so it's just building that muscle for being able to tolerate the discomfort.
Do you miss it? Do you miss the discomfort? Do you miss the getting in the car, feeling it, going that speed?
No, I don't look forward to that. That wasn't fun, but I miss the only thing I miss is sort of when it's really good and you've thread the needle perfectly and you've nailed it. And it's just like you floated your way through that lap and it was so perfect. Like execution at the highest level, is a cool feeling. But I don't miss the discomfort it takes to, go through the trial and error and hitting it.
One of my favorite movies is Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh,
And
sure.
I love the intensity of it, like being able to sit in a car for that long period of time, driving at that speed, and then the thread and the needle factor. Oh,
Yeah.
it's the most beautiful thing, beautiful moment, and it's seeing it on film. It's insane. Was So I want to sort of backtrack a little bit to what we are talking about before. Has there been a person that you want to ask a question to that is sort of like a burning question, a burning desire that you haven't been able to ask yet to that particular person? Is there anyone?
Any one person that I have a question for, dead or alive?
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive. Man. Well, when I think about which point in time I'd like to go back to, I would love to go back to my first stop would be ancient Egypt, which
Mm.
I went to Egypt in February for the first time finally. And I was there for a couple of weeks and saw the temples and pyramids and everything. And I would love to have gone during that point in time, 5,000 years ago, building of the pyramids, just to see what the hell was really going on. So what would I don't know. I guess whoever was, I don't know who exactly it was that I'd like to talk to, but that's where I'd like to go back to. But who would I like to talk to? I mean, who wouldn't want to talk to? My next stop was going to be being not Jesus, but a disciple. That would have been an interesting time to see what was really going on. So, I mean, it's pretty hard pressed to not want to sit down and have a chat with Jesus.
Yeah. I've had quite a few people actually answer that question with Jesus. I think he's one of the most curious people to have a conversation with. And what kind of questions would you want to ask him? Like, what's the meaning of all this for starters?
I would
Like,
probably, I think that in hindsight, because I get that now, right? Since I'm allowed the hindsight of, having to think of the question from this point in time, is I think a really good question would be, what are you doing here? What was
mm,
the point of you coming? Because I mean, I'm not going to say that I don't know if it's that I mean, we're taught like the Bible was written 30, 40, 50, 60 years. The stories were, written that long after. Look, if someone told a story about me and they were literally here and saw it and then left and went and told a story about me that same day, they're not going to get every detail right. Science tells us that memory is very unreliable. So now you put decades between the event and the recollection or the words. It's like, come on, we didn't get it exactly right. It's impossible, actually.
mm.
And so I would say, like, what were you doing? Like, why did you come? And then, I think that would tell a lot of the story. I think that would be really, really the best question, because that would unpack what we're here for too, probably, because I'm betting that there's a message in there for us.
What do you think about the ultimate salvation message that is actually in the Bible?
That he's,
As Jesus coming to save the world. What do you think about that?
do I think he came to save the world?
Yeah.
From my perspective, essentially, I don't think you have to read the Bible, believe in it to make sure that you go to heaven and stuff like that. I think that's, I think that's a little ridiculous to think that if someone doesn't have the book in the world to know the story, to believe in it, that they're going to hell. That does not make sense to me. But I think that inclusion was part of the stories, love and kindness. And I think that there's probably a lot of messages in there that translate to being a savior, because essentially, this is the disconnect that I have with religion versus spirituality, is that I think that the practice is an inside job. I don't think that I'm here to have someone else forgive me. I think that the hardest job, it tends to be forgiving yourself and believing in yourself and loving yourself. And every time we have difficult interactions with people, it tends to tell us a lot about ourselves. If we're triggered, if we're projecting based on our own insecurities or our preferences or our patterns, whatever they are, those tend to come from us. And so I think that was stuff that was being shown and taught. So yeah, I think it's an inside job. I think that the more that we can look within ourselves, and if everyone did it, problem solved. Imagine if no one got mad anymore, which essentially says that you have healed all those aspects within you that get poked at. Like, it's like, I always use the same example, but if someone's really lazy, I'm like, oh God, they're lazy. Like, it's because I don't allow myself to be lazy. Or if somebody, is disrespectful to me and I get triggered, it's because I would never allow myself to do that to somebody. I wouldn't be mean to them. So like, it's all information about ourselves. So as soon as we end up, in this place where we can exist without triggers and without any kind of like charged emotion, then it sort of starts to tell the story about how much work you've done on yourself to love yourself, to forgive yourself, to heal things about yourself. But of course, the catch is that we need other people to do it.
So what is your current spiritual practice?
I would say for a good sort of 9 months, like last sort of probably from last summer until the beginning of this year, I was pretty regimented and I was pretty consistent. I like to use that word a little bit more because I don't believe that I have to do anything. I would get up and I would meditate and journal and, but then again, I kind of was going through some tough stuff. So I really needed that. I needed that therapy. Not only did I have 2 therapists, but I also was doing my own therapy. So, and talking to people that, were reaching out and people that I knew were really smart about certain aspects of life. But I found that since I came back from Egypt, being on a pilgrimage through all the temples and pyramids for, a couple of weeks, I was like, I'm good for a while. So I was just thinking to myself this morning, I'm looking over at my meditation table. I have like an altar set up with pictures and crystals and, all kinds of different stuff, all the hippie stuff. I was like, man, maybe I should go sit down over there again. But I've just been feeling really good. So I think that I don't, again, like I spoke about at the very beginning, I can be very destination oriented. And that's because I can pinpoint an end point. Like I know where I want to kind of end. But I don't think with spirituality and with the whole religious spiritual practice that I don't really know. I don't know what the end point is. So I don't have anything to grasp onto. So I really free flow through my spiritual practices. I mean, it could be anything from reading to taking a walk with the dogs, to having a good conversation with somebody, to meditating or doing yoga or, just listening to the birds chirp. I mean, those are all, to me, essential forms of connecting with the self. And, I don't think you just have to sit and meditate to be spiritual.
You mentioned that you were going through a pretty rough time recently. I don't know if you're comfortable with sharing exactly what you were going through, but ultimately, how did you get out of that bad period?
Sure. It was last summer and it was a breakup. And, I think I always look at breakups, they're like a pyramid. I feel like the one that the one that wants it to happen. It's like, it's been bad for a while and it gets worse. And then once it finally happens, they actually start to come down off of it and feel better. But it's the opposite for the other person. It's like, they are the ones that all of a sudden are like, oh, now we're here. And it's like, that's the worst point in time. And they have to kind of go through that, they have to go through the acceptance of it. So, but the peak sort of transfers pain. And so, I think that was me. And I just, I had to process and understand and come to my own conclusions on a lot of things, and did a lot of self-work. And that's kind of, if somebody were to ask me, what are you most proud of? I would say accountability. And I think that's across the board for everything that I do, whether it was driving a race car or whether it's been, healing a broken heart. It was accountability. What's my part in this? What was I meant to see? Where did this pattern come from? How do I heal this pattern? How do I stop this cycle? And so, looking at myself was, a really powerful thing to do. It doesn't, I think, the things that kind of peak in there, like, it doesn't mean it's not someone else's fault, some things that happen. That doesn't mean that. It just means, how are you going to move on? And what is your part in this dynamic? And because the other person really doesn't have anything to do with you anymore. So how you get to that better place, or how I got to that better place, is really like full accountability and looking at my part in the dynamic. And it kind of shifted everything. I think that we as people tend to, our subconscious is programmed in the first, from the last trimester into the first 6 to 8 years of our life is when we program the subconscious and all the patterns that we have. And so, it's breaking those patterns. When we have cycles and patterns in life, it's really hard to see them because we think it's just us, right? And I don't know, this is just us and how our life goes. And I'm just really unlucky, or I'm just really whatever. But it's a pattern that comes from childhood. And so, learning about those is incredibly powerful. And, as I say to so many, as a parent, you're going to screw your kids up. You are, period. You're going to love them too much. You're going to love them too little, but either way, they're going to come away with something that needs healing and some imbalance. And so, accountability is a really big part of that.
I was speaking with Dr. Shafali recently about how we are going to mess the kids up. So don't be afraid of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, accountability is one of those big things that we all need to realize and go back to each and every day. It's I like how you mentioned, where's my part in this? I think we tend to pass the buck and blame, because it's easy to blame. Once again, it's easy to pass on all the hurt, all the baggage to somebody else. But you're saying, no, be accountable to yourself. That's the most important thing. And that helps you accept the healing and accept the growth that comes from the hurt. So I love that. This may be a difficult question to answer, but we'll see how we go. Having gone through all the difficult breakups and I guess you could say the craziness of driving in cars and the speed, and what do you love the most about yourself?
Well, let's see. I mean, other than answering, like, I've learned how to be accountable. I would say, what do I love most about myself? I love how much energy I have. I am hard to tire. Although once you put me on the couch with a show on, I'm like 4 blinks away from falling asleep once it hits. So, I can fall asleep a little quick then, but I have a lot of energy. A lot of ambition. I'm a real self-starter. Like, I don't need someone to tell me to go work out. I don't need someone to tell me to eat healthy. I don't need someone to tell me to be ambitious. I don't need someone to tell me to want to achieve great things. I'm a self-starter. I have big dreams. Like, I'm not afraid to dream big. I love that. I love that I believe that it's possible to accomplish anything. Like if somebody's going to accomplish it, well, might as well be me. You know, I mean, I love running the 4 minute. I love being the 4 minute mile story, right? The first one to do something. That's not my driving force, but it's, I don't like to be predictable. I don't like to be ordinary. Like if somebody calls me weird, I'm like, thank you, because the opposite of weird is conventional. And I would rather die on my hill of weird than be conventional. So I love that part about me. And I love that I'm open-minded. I mean, I believe in what I believe in right now, but I fully believe that you could tell me something today that would change my mind on something fundamental based on the information that's collected. So I might believe in a whole different set of thoughts in a month or 10 years. I don't know. It just depends. I'm very much a seeker, very much seek truth. And I think that's what keeps me open-minded. So those are some things I love about myself.
That's cool. I love all those because I feel like I'm one and the same with sitting down, watching a TV or show, or you put food in front of me as well. Like I'll finish the food and then I'll feel really lethargic and just collapse. And then, yeah, all the other things you mentioned, I don't have to be told to get up in the morning, go for a run, exercise, eat properly. I've kind of like had a pretty crazy journey getting to that point in the first place, 9 days in hospital because of what I did to myself. I actually did CrossFit. So I think you can relate to that as well.
Okay. What did you do? I mean, CrossFit is, look, my sister said it best. So my sister and I went and got our L1, like, I don't know, a few years back. And as we're driving, we did it at the ranch in California too, which is where it started. It all started at the ranch in Northern California. And so we were on our way to the ranch for the course. And she's like, CrossFit doesn't get you hurt. Your ego gets you hurt. And I'm like, that's so true. That is so true, because it's when your form goes and then you keep going and it's like your ego goes, come on, you can do it. Don't be last, be first, like one more, or like one more muscle up, and then you tear your shoulder, your pec muscle. I mean, it's totally the ego, but what the hell landed you in hospital for 9 days?
Oh, you're going to laugh at this. So I was doing CrossFit. I was very much crazy intense with it. So the ego for me was I've got to do 2 sessions a day. Sometimes they were 2 hours. Nuts. And I did not listen to anyone at all. I actually tore a muscle in my shoulder doing a muscle up, and granted, I kept going. I kept doing more of the ring muscle ups, kept going while the tear was
Didn't I just tell this story? I think I just told this story.
You just told it. So, but I finally, what happened was I couldn't afford to keep going to the gym. So I started doing outdoor workouts, started running. And while I was running, I ended up running for 2 hours, every single morning, plus doing a 40-minute workout that was CrossFit style with the local bars down the road from my house. I wasn't replacing any of the energy that I burned with the right nutrition. I was eating a 1 kilo bag of spinach a day plus cheese sauce. I know it's nuts. It was stupid, but my bowel was not happy at all, and I did not listen to it. I kept going. I was in absolute agony going to the toilet, sorry to paint the vivid picture, and I ended up literally collapsing one morning, and I couldn't really move. My bowel was blocked like concrete. So how do you unblock a blocked drain? You gotta blast it essentially. So I spent 4 days in hospital trying to unblock my bowel. Didn't happen. And then I also had to watch my kidneys because they were dehydrated. So there was a number of other things that I did to myself that just weren't making things go my way. So I basically told the doctor I want to get out of hospital. So I got out of hospital. Then basically a week later, another 5 days I was in hospital, unblocking the blocked bowel.
Because you continued to eat spinach and cheese?
Yeah. Yeah, continue to do it.
I mean,
So,
I think that it's can have too much of a good thing too. And I fall on the side that you do where I train too much. So it's like, I, you know, did, I mean, I make up my own workouts at home. I wrote a book and I wrote all the workouts for the book. And, I've done CrossFit at gyms for sure. Like I learned how to do it there, but I love to build my own home gyms. And especially with CrossFit, it's easy to do that. But the idea that I can do too much, even if I can do it, is weird to me. I'm like, but if I can, it seems like I should.
why shouldn't I?
Why shouldn't I? If a little is good, a lot is better.
Mm.
But I'm not very good at the recovery either. And my boyfriend was just talking about recovery stuff. And I'm looking over at the book. I interviewed a guy named Ben Greenfield earlier, who wrote a book called Boundless. And he's a big biohacker guy. And, just looking at it and looking at recovery and looking at all those different modalities, it's like, that's what I'm starting to get into too. I'm like, I need an infrared sauna. I need a cold plunge bath. I need all these things. I mean, I'm actually standing on a grounding mat underneath my feet. I'm not standing, I'm sitting right now, but it's under my feet. So yeah, I mean, I have a hard time backing off myself. I pretty much feel lazy if I don't do 2 physical activities a day.
Same. I go nuts.
I know. Like I'm sure like it might be a workout and a walk, but at least or like a workout and a hike, but it's also maybe a workout and a yoga. It might be workout and a run. It's like if I don't do 2 things, I kind of feel lazy.
One and the same. Once again, like
I hope my bowels, my bowels, I'll take notice. If I skip a day, I'm just gonna, I don't know. I guess I'll coffee enema. That was one of the things that Ben was talking about. He's like, I do a coffee enema like once a week or once every couple weeks. I'm like,
maybe that's all. What I did. Sorry.
Oh man.
Don't eat a 1 kilo bag of spinach or cheese sauce like every single day for months on end, and then run 2 hours a day. Like that's just stupid.
Okay. Well, where did you land with fitness then? Where have you found your happier medium right now?
So I will not extend if I can't extend. Like I've been more in tune now with my body and listening to it, because there's a number of things that are going on in my life with my health that I've sort of like, hey, I'm not invincible, even though I like to think so. So I've just sort of like taken a step back. I mean, I still exercise, I still do something every single day, but I'm not going to push myself to the extreme because I know I'll end up in hospital again. And I don't like hospitals. So that's where I've sort of my relationship with food, my relationship with fitness, overall health, well-being, it's getting my mind right, getting my ego in check. And just saying, look, I am who I am today. That's enough. And, if I don't exercise today, then it's a rest day. It's all right. There's always going to be tomorrow. Or I hope there's going to be tomorrow. So yeah, that's where I'm at, to be honest with you.
Are you a Leo? You seem like a Leo.
I was born in August. Is that a Leo?
March, April, May, June, July. You might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never looked into it that much.
You've never looked up your sign? You don't know what sign you are?
No.
Oh man.
That's another thing I've got to look into.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. March, April, May, June, July, August. But what did you say? You're early?
I'm late August.
What's the number?
The 29th.
No, you might be you're a Virgo. You might be a Virgo.
I might be a toss between Virgo and Leo. Who knows?
Yeah, Virgo. So Leos are very, very fire, lots of energy, also like to do things on stage. Like they're kind of presenting, have a show, things like that. And lots of energy though, and very inspirational. And the Virgo is someone who's really analytical, detail oriented, perfectionist, health conscious, and has a really hard time giving themselves credit for the success that they've achieved.
Yeah, I'm a bit of both. Definitely a bit of both. Okay. Danica, I really love this conversation. I have one final question for you. This is my all-time favorite question I ask everyone at the end. It's a
Okay.
hypothetical one, but I want you to imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. All your friends and your family have decided to put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. Don't ask me how in the world they got it all. We'll call it magic for the sake of argument. But they've been able to get it and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
Mm. This makes me feel like I wrote my obituary a year or two ago. I thought this is a good exercise to write my obituary, to reverse engineer my life, to go, how do I want to be remembered? Because that seemingly gets to more of the depth of how your life should go. So I would like to think that I looked absolutely buff, ripped, and attractive in every single photo. Like perfect. Just kidding. I would like there to be photos where I'm laughing a lot. I would love for there to be photos of all of, the things, the phases, the seasons of my life, the chapters of my life. I'm okay with the ups and downs, but I also hope there's lots of smiling photos. And what I want said about me, I just hope that people would look back and reminisce or ruminate on what I was able to help them accomplish within themselves in their own life. So the inspirational aspect of things, the leading by example, but also being there to show, to help them along in their journey, to wake them up to certain things that they've maybe never thought of before. And because of her, I did this and I thought differently. And then I looked into that and it led me down this path. And it's like, I hope that my existence here on earth would have brought the people that I touched in their lives forward progression in their evolution of consciousness, happiness, and peace.
Perfect send-off message. People can find you. Pretty Intense is your podcast. Go and listen to it, everybody. And they can find you on Instagram, I believe, and Facebook.
Yeah,
Twitter.
Just my name. Yeah. And then, we didn't talk about it at all, but if some of these topics bring you any kind of sorrow or make you want to celebrate, I also make wine. So
I forgot about that.
That's okay. No,
maybe next time.
No, it's totally fine. But it's fun to do that. So it's like I have currency now. Whenever I go anywhere, I just bring a bottle of my wine.
Well, I can't wait to try some when I get over there on a plane. But
yes, exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on the Storybox podcast today and sharing your story.
Thank you. It was a fun conversation.